Hello, Dadas all over Kenya and East Africa. As always, we are so honored that you could join us. We're on KBC Channel 1. We come to you on Sunday at 4 p.m. and we are always, always grateful for you to come. We never take it for granted. Today, I want us to talk about another little family secret, or another secret that we ladies like to think that we have buried and forgotten: abortion. It's a big one. So brace yourselves, girls. I'm joined by Akech. Akech, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yes, and her protege. Remind me your name. I am so sorry. Her protege, Gabriella?
Noel.
Noel. Oh my God, I am so sorry. May I be forgiven?
Yes.
So I'm joined by Akech and Noel. This happens, by the way, in real life. So Akech and Noel, yeah? And they are the ladies who will share their experiences with abortion. You're very welcome to the Dada's show. So let me start with the younger lady. Yes. So Noel, tell us a bit about yourself.
As you've heard, I'm Noel.
Yes.
And I'm in my 30s, my early 30s. I had an abortion.
She has the gene. You'll forever be young.
Definitely.
You have the DNA of forever being young.
Yeah.
So you had an abortion?
Yes, I had an abortion in my early 20s. I think that's like, I would say exactly 10 years ago, okay. I had an abortion. Okay. Yes. I was just a young girl in college, and then I met this guy. We were not of the same age. He was a bit older than myself. And maybe if it was this time, we would say that it was kind of a sponsor of a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one thing led to another, and then I got pregnant. It was the first guy I was ever with, and the first time I got pregnant. And I had so many questions in my mind, like my schooling, my family, and everything. But that to me was a bit of a non-issue. The issue here was that I'm pregnant, and now what? I had decided to keep the pregnancy by myself, and I've spoken to someone else who really supported me, and she was like, you know what, you're not in secondary school, you're in college, and I mean, there are college students who are married, and it's okay. You can just keep the pregnancy, you'll give birth, and then you go back to school. So what happened, I shared with another person who planted the idea of having an abortion in my mind. But to me, abortion never happened in Kenya. Abortion happened in the West. To me, being a church girl and everything, abortion was unthinkable. So I brushed it off, and then I met with the guy who, after I told I am pregnant, disappeared. But he reappeared again, and he told me he was willing to support me, he was willing to take care of me, he was willing to work with me. So he told me we go meet a gyna friend of his, whom we went to meet. But when I went to the clinic, they had already planned that when I go there, they have an abortion on me. So I had not been consulted on if I wanted to have an abortion. It is a decision that they made. They're going to perform the abortion on me, you see. So when I went to the clinic, the gyna asked me how old the pregnancy was, and I told him how old the pregnancy was. But you see, ignorance is so bad. Personally, I knew when a woman is pregnant, there are injections that they're given. So I was given an injection, and then I was taken to a room just to go and rest. And so when I went, I stayed in the room for like 2 hours, and then the gyna came in. And he told me, you know, you're here for an abortion. And I'm like, no, I'm not here for an abortion. I think you're talking to the wrong person. So he told me, actually, you're here for an abortion. So when I tried like arguing it out with him. I even wanted to tell him, just go tell the guy you've done the abortion on me, yes, and keep the money, but let me just go with my baby. But he grabbed my hand and then gave me an injection, and I blackouted. So they performed an abortion on me. I really do not know how long it took, but all I know was that when I gained consciousness, it was at night. It was at night. So um, then I was taken back home. He took me back home. And he actually told me he'll call me the next day. So 10 years down the line, the next day is not yet to come.
You've never heard of him again?
No, I've never heard of him again.
Okay, hold on, Noella. Aket, Yani, she just went straight into it. I was like, I know. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Akech Aimba, and I am the founder and director of Pearls and Treasures Trust, where we reach out to women who've had abortions. We take them through a healing program just for them to find healing and restoration in that area. But most importantly, we are also in the business of saving babies, because we know what abortion does to women. We take women who are in a crisis pregnancy or an unplanned pregnancy, and we counsel them through with the intention of helping them accept the pregnancy and the baby, and then they can therefore have the baby, even if they choose to give the baby up for adoption, but at least save them from abortion. So yes, plus mentoring women, because we want to totally prevent, so that we are not dealing with a pregnancy and then we are dealing with an abortion. So we start from prevention through mentoring and teaching on sexual purity and stuff like that as we go up.
Okay.
Yes.
When did you start this journey? How did you come by this journey? What happened? How did you find yourself here?
Okay, so out of my own experience, I'm twice post-abortive. And the first time I had my abortion, I was 18, I don't remember. But they're about 18 or 19, I think 19. It was after Form 4. And in high school, you know, I was this girl good girl, not into relationships and all that. So when I came out of school, came into the world, people are in relationships, and me, I'm like, I don't even know how to get into a relationship. And so a friend of mine introduced me to a guy, and I'm thinking, okay, so what? So at that moment, I decided to be in a relationship because of peer pressure, not really because I knew what, you know, like all that. So as I'm engaging with this guy in this relationship, I go to visit him where he used to live with, I think, a big brother and all that. As usual, one thing leads to another. We're watching a movie, the hand is on the shoulders, do you what, let's go to the bedroom. But now the difference with me and other situations is because I knew in my mind, I don't want to get pregnant before, you know, the way we were taught those days, you cannot even shake hands with a guy because you'll get pregnant. So that stuck in my mind. So in that process, I pushed him away. But lo and behold, he had done his work. So without penetration, I got pregnant. And so I'm so naive. I'm not understanding what's going on in my body, but I miss my periods, I'm sick and all that. And when somebody asked me, you know, what? I'm like, it's malaria. Because I'd visited my brother in Kisumu, what. So I'm like, the weather, you're trying to justify why you're missing your periods. Because I didn't have, it was just heavy petting, you know. So so one of my friends, you know, introduced me to this guy, was like, you're pregnant. And she's like, let's just go for a pregnancy test to eliminate, you know. So I go for a pregnancy test and it's positive. And I'm like, what? So the nurse asked me, Kwani? I'm like, I didn't have. Then she asked me what happened. So I explained to her, and she says, it happens sometimes because you are already prepared to receive. It can easily find its way up and you get pregnant. So that's how I got myself pregnant. And so now thinking, okay, I need to go and tell my mother, because like Noel is saying, those days, that's 20 years ago, abortion was unheard of, you know? Like it was a thing, chini ya maji. And I didn't know that hospitals perform abortions. And so for me, in my mind, I'm preparing myself to go and tell my mom that I'm pregnant and all that. And now I talked to somebody close to me, an authority figure, somebody who's older than me, who I just, you know, talked to about my issues. And she's like, no, you cannot go and see your mom and tell them that you're pregnant. Okay, the person knew my family and all that. So it was like, you can't go tell mom you're pregnant. We have to deal with this thing. I have no idea what he's talking about. So it's like, don't worry, I'll sort you out. 2 days later, he comes like, go and see so-and-so at such and such a place, and they will sort you out. So that's when I was introduced to abortion. So I don't know if you want me to go through the details or...
No, I don't. I don't know. I don't know what. For both of you, I think I hear hospitals and doctors and injections.
Yes.
So it sounds pretty. There's a system. There's a system arranged around abortion in this country.
Of course, a very
organized system, a very clean system.
Yes.
So for those of us who think of abortion as a back street where people will die, maybe we are a bit behind the times. I think what I'm hearing is 20 years ago, there was a system of how to get an abortion. It was a clean system. You'd go to a doctor, you'd get injections, you'd walk out.
Yes.
My question to you is, why after the first abortion could you possibly have gotten pregnant again? Okay, did I shout?
It's okay to shout. You're very much allowed to shout. We are here because we are healed. So
I'm a bit confused because this is a horrible experience. So you know, I mean, I'm sure I'll ask both of you what happened after the hospital, but how would you again do the same thing?
That's a good question, and maybe just for me to paint a picture to you for what happens emotionally for a woman who's had an abortion. So you're in a crisis, and then that crisis is solved, There's relief. But then for me, because of the value system I was brought up in, you don't have sex, you don't get pregnant, you don't even think about abortion. So I thought to myself, no one will ever marry me because I've had an abortion. I mean, no man dreams on his bed, I want a woman who has had 2 abortions. Every man wants to marry a virgin. So if you've gone to that degree of destroying yourself, you just rule out, like me, I'm not in the market right now, so no man will approach me. And there's a way abortion makes you feel like it's been written on your forehead, you know. So definitely my self-worth was wounded. I had no self-worth. I had no confidence in myself, in the fact that I'm pretty, I am all that. So the next relationship I got into, after pushing the man so hard, because I had this defense mechanism, and he was still pursuing me so hard, I got into it thinking, this is exactly what I thought in my head. I'm like, this is the only man who can love me with my baggage of abortion. And so let me, I mean, if he's stooped so low, a lie of the enemy, stooped so low to love me with my abortion, then let me give it to him. So the next relationship, remember the first relationship was not sexual, it was just one encounter, but this one became because I was giving myself to receive that love and that affirmation from that man. And definitely in my head, I'm not thinking the way to get pregnant again is to have sex. So you're not thinking, you're trying to feed into that void and that emptiness and that lack of self-esteem and that lack of confidence, and you feel as you're giving this man the sex, he's filling that void. And lo and behold, I got pregnant again. But this second time, because the first abortion looked like it had solved my issue, it's me who proposed that, you know what, let's do this. So he got the money, took me to another lovely place, in quotes, because an abortion place is not lovely at all, a place of death. So, and I went and had the second abortion. And maybe just to throw this in, the second abortion was done for by a woman, and she was like an elderly woman who, when you look at like this, I knew she had a daughter probably my age or just about my age. And as she was doing it on me, I was crying out. Like my heart was telling her, please tell me to go home. Like that's what my heart was singing. And that shows you that we are all, there is a conscience in us that knows when something is wrong, when we're doing something wrong. In as much as it looks right in the eyes of people, or what society thinks or tries to put pressure on people. At the end of the day, we understand, the conscience that in us understands that what we're doing is wrong. And that's why my heart was crying. If that woman would have said, I am not doing this on you, I would have gone home and had my baby. Because in my mind, I'm like, you're like my mother. You can't do this to me, you know? Yeah. So that's how I got my second pregnancy.
Okay, I'll start with Noela. After you go home after an abortion, what happens? Do you have any thoughts? I mean, you had a child growing in you. Do you feel, and for you, I feel particularly bad because it was taken away from you. You were going to keep the child. You were going to have a baby, and now the baby is gone. What do you feel? What are the feelings? What happens to you?
Well, despite the fact that I was going to keep the baby, you see, before that, I also had my fears. I was thinking, well, I'm pregnant. What about school? What about telling my parents and everything? And when you have a headache and then you take some painkillers, you feel relief. So that is the first thing that I felt. Phew, I'm not pregnant again. There's nobody I'm going to tell about that I'm pregnant. I'll still go on with my life. I'll still go on with school. And it happened that when I was pregnant, I used to throw up a lot. So imagine coming home. Now I can eat. I'm not throwing up. You see, I felt relieved. You see, and that is what happened to a woman who has had an abortion. The first emotion they go through is relief. I am not pregnant again. All the fears that I had, everything that I was feeling is now not there. I will go on with life as if nothing happened. Yes.
After the relief, what happens? Because I'm sure there's a story.
Of course, there's a story.
I have a feeling that after the relief, something very bad begins to happen to you.
So yeah, so the relief, like she's talking about, because remember, every woman who has an unplanned pregnancy, it's a crisis. And when we are in a crisis, we are looking for the nearest solution possible. So that is why we get into relief mode immediately after the abortion. But then there's something we call post-abortion syndrome that comes after. And we give it about 6 months to 1 year, and now the guilt begins to kick in. The guilt, the feeling just bad, feeling, what did I do? You know, because that relief is very short-lived, you know, and the pain and the reality of what you did comes kicking in very hard. And some women suppress it, try to suppress it, but you cannot suppress it too long. And then now we begin to employ coping mechanisms. Now for me, I remember I couldn't look at myself on the mirror for 3 years, because every time I looked at that mirror, I could see that person who killed their own baby. And you know, this is a secret. I like the way you started your show by saying, these are secrets that we hide and we think no one is supposed to know, no one should know. But then your mirror knows, your conscience knows. And every time your conscience is pricking at you, and you have to respond to that pricking of that conscience. And so every time I looked at the mirror, it reminded me of the things I did that nobody knows, but I know. And the mirror is reflecting that to me. And so I got into depression. I got into suicidal thoughts, heavy suicidal thoughts. I used to have serious crying spells. Like, I would cry endlessly. If you'd ask me why I'm crying, Aki, for the love of God, I could not explain to you why I'm crying. But I used to just be so sorrowful and so sad, and I couldn't explain it. I did not eat. I could not eat well. Food tasted like sand to me. Sometimes I wake up and I can't go to work. At that time, I was volunteering at a crisis pregnancy center because I wanted to save other babies from what I had done. And I remember there was a time I woke up and I just couldn't go to work. For 2 weeks, I was depressed. I could not leave my house. In fact, the house was dark, but then I wanted to go under the bed. I just didn't want any light because I just felt, what is there to live for? You know, I think I attempted suicide twice, you know, but thank God he intervened in his own way. I think he put me into a deep sleep or something. And I was angry, my God. And again, if you ask me why I'm angry, I can't explain to you. I was really, you could literally touch my anger. I was bitter. I was bitter with everything, you know, everyone. Like anyone who came to show me any form of love, I would just, you know. I was on attack mode every time. I remember there was this girl who used to love me. You know, I usually say, no matter how bad you are, call anyone who is bad. God always put someone around you who loves you unconditionally. And this girl was a virgin, and I knew she was a virgin because now what we used to do, go out and talk about sexuality issues and all. And she would say the way she's a virgin, and I just feel, kisasa wewe, you're my enemy. And she loved me, she'd bring me flowers, make notes, you know, write notes and pass it on to me, just to make me feel okay. I think it was just God using her for me to understand what love is, even in that state, you know. And I would just feel, why are you doing this to me, you know? So I was projecting my issues to everyone, even those who tried to show love to me. But then, thank God, the institution, the organization I was volunteering for at that time, the director understood about post-abortion syndrome. And before you start working for that organization, you had to reveal your past. And so she was like, this girl is going through that post-abortion syndrome. So she started working with me. And that's when, for the first time, I connected all that I was going through with the abortion. I just didn't know what had happened to me, because all of a sudden I'm just this angry, bitter, suicidal, depressed person who I wasn't. I'm a lastborn in a family of 9, and lastborns are very confident. I was a very confident, happy girl because I'm a daddy's girl, you know, even though he died when I was 18. But that, just that, my dad being there for me gave me that confidence. And I didn't know. In fact, I remember very well how I struggled to know who this Akech was. I used to ask God, what am I? Like, who am I was very big. It was like, I'm now not even in the level of a human being. I am an object. What am I? And I'm trying to understand this object, you know. So, yeah, I was in such an emotional turmoil, and no one could explain to me what I had become until I encountered this lady who started working with me, and I started understanding myself better. I started connecting with the abortion, and the healing started coming. And maybe also to throw in something, after the first abortion, because the first abortion, it was way, by the time I realized I'm pregnant and all that, I was already, I think, into my 2nd trimester. So it was a big baby. And the procedure they did on me was dilation and evacuation. And that, you know, they chokora your womb properly. So after that procedure, I think it was a psychological pain. I used to just feel pain in my womb, in my uterus, and I can't explain it. Like, I would sit like this and you know, for up to a year.
So
I
there
was in that
trauma.
state. There was trauma.
Physical trauma.
Psychological that now showed, you know, physically.
Yeah.
And nothing was wrong with me physically, but then that trauma makes me feel like something is wrong. Like I'd have physical pains out of that trauma of abortion. So yeah.
What was your experience, Noella? After the relief, did you have similar experiences?
I'd say depression, first of all. And when we say that depression is just a very dark cloud around someone, it's very true. I also loved the dark. Like, I would get into the room, draw curtains, and then cover myself in a blanket. I'm still feeling like there's some light. So at times I would even go under the bed. Another thing that I also went through is just, you see, abortion leaves an empty space inside of you. And we all know that truth is.
Yeah.
So some women who go through abortions, and that is one thing that I went through, was now going out to have someone, because they want this gap, this space, in this void to be filled. But then now you see, sex cannot fill it. Sex will in fact make you pregnant again, and now you go have another abortion. Pregnant again, now you go have another abortion. And I think also that explains why you'll get a woman has had 7, 8 multiple abortions, because they were finding solace in a man. They were trying to find something that was going to fill this void, and they ended up sleeping with multiple men, getting multiple pregnancies, having multiple abortions.
Yeah.
I was so sarcastic.
Cynical.
Yes.
Jaded, I think, yeah.
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 And I also had crying spells. Like I used to cry until the time that I came for my counseling classes. I used to cry a lot. And a catch here would tell you when I came and
Yeah, let Akech say, because Akech remembers it better than you. I think she was on the other end.
I was on the other end. So now I'm receiving people.
You are receiving people.
So Noel comes in. What is your name? I like demonstrating that. Like every question you'd ask her, she would just cry. So for Noel, we had to, because she could not talk the first session, the second, I think it's maybe up to the third session is when she actually really started talking. And that's how many of the post-abortive women end up. They just cry. They have this so much grief in their hearts and sorrow that it can only be expressed through tears. But then the other flip side is that you get some people who are so numb, I mean so hardened, they cry for nothing. Because I think they really condemn themselves. They're like, Ebu shed a tear, you see me. You know, that's how they tell themselves. So they come so numb. So you're actually dealing with two extreme emotions, if I may say. Then now when the Noels stop crying, the ones who are numb have now hit reality. They now begin to cry.
Yeah.
So Noel cried, I think, for the first 2 sessions. She could not say a word. And we just let her cry. Because that's the best way she would express herself.
Ladies, we have to go into a break, Noel. You wanted to say something? It has to be very short. because we may not see you again. So whatever you want to say, yeah, just say it.
I think another thing that I came to connect with the abortion after I came for my counseling classes was the hate for men. So you can imagine, because a man hurt me, I used to hate men. But at the same time, I want a man to hurt. So that made me now get into, you see, because I hate men and at the same time I want. So I have to find out something that is going to sort me in that area. But that I connected after now I came for my healing classes. Yeah.
Okay. Ladies, we have to go into a break. There's just never enough time on this show. I think we should have a commission and go to KBC and ask for more time. Yeah, send in and say we need more time. We have to go into a break. When we come back, Dr. Sheila Konyo will be here to just give us an idea of what we're dealing with. And thank you very much, Noela. We have to lose you. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Today we've been talking about the secret, the Dada's secret, abortion. And Akech and Noela shared their stories. Thank you, Akech. Thank you for being honest. I always so appreciate ladies who are honest. We're joined by Daktari wa maneno. I don't know whether to call you, because you're a... Daktari, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Sheila Konyu, clinical psychologist, working with individuals who have different mental health challenges, from very severe to just everyday life issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Daktari. I know that you've worked with Akech for a long time. Where did you meet her? How did you guys end up together as a tag team?
Yeah, Akech and I go way back. We used to work together at Crisis Pregnancy Ministries when we were much younger. And yeah, I used to lead a group of volunteers, and so that's how she came to us as one of the volunteers. We used to go out to schools, talk to young people about issues of sexuality.
Okay. So I remember when I was in secondary school, which was hundreds of years ago, there used to be a movie that used to come, and it was a gory movie. I don't know whether you guys still use that tool. A very horrible movie about abortion, where we were shown various abortion things. I don't know whether that was supposed to frighten us I hope that's not what you were using. I think, could that have been you? But nobody talked about the emotional ramifications of an abortion. I remember that we were just told these are the physical things that happen to you, and there was a little talk after that, and everybody went their merry way. I don't think anybody ever talked about what happens to you after an abortion. we were just made to understand that it's not a good thing, but nobody ever says what actually happens. So clinically, what actually happens to a woman?
Yeah, so clinically, what happens is, you know, abortion is the death of a child, right? Whether you recognize that it's a child or not, it is a child. And somehow within your womanhood, there's a recognition that there's been a death. And so when we talk about post-abortion syndrome, it's that inability to process that grief, that loss, that pain associated with that death. And so that's the biggest, I guess, symptom, that you have this buried grief. You know, like now when you lose a loved one, there are those rituals. You go, you bury, you sing, people come and comfort. But now with an abortion, there's been a death, but there's no room or space for you to be able to process that grief. Oftentimes women are not aware that they're even wrestling with this grief. They just feel sad, like Kinakesh was saying, you feel just this sadness, this sorrow, this loss. You can't really pinpoint where it's coming from. And often it can now morph into depression and even now aspects of feeling so hopeless that you feel like suicide is the way out for you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest symptoms. And then again, because you've done this thing that, like Akech said, in the mirror, you know deep down your conscience knows it's something that you've done wrong. So you walk around life feeling this sense of not only guilt because of doing something wrong, but then shame. Like you feel defective. You feel like I am the most baddest person in the world. And then this shame, you feel like it's labeled on your forehead. And that causes you to feel like you can't get close to anyone, because it's almost like if you have a bad smell, you don't want to get close to anyone because you feel like everyone will smell you.
Yeah.
So shame is like that. So shame makes you feel like everyone knows I've done this thing. So what do? You retreat from everyone. So you isolate yourself, you withdraw, you don't allow people to get close to you, right? Because you're hiding. Because if people get close to you, they will know you did this very bad thing. And if they know you did this very bad thing, they will never love you again, or they'll never want to be there for you. And so that perpetuates the secrecy. And so people continue to keep quiet and struggle with the condemnation. And that's why I think Akech and her team telling their story is so powerful, because they've gotten the healing to the point the shame is no longer there.
Yeah.
It's like, I did this and there's a way out.
Yeah.
There's healing available.
Akech, how bad is the problem? I think, do we have any stats in Kenya? Do we have any idea how bad is it? And you know, is it something that's very normal? Is it normalized? Because as I said before, it seems there's a system to solve the problem. Yeah.
I will not bury my head in the sand and say that it's not bad. It's bad. Statistics say, though exaggerated by those who are in favor of abortion, that almost 500,000 do it every year. But we believe it's mixed statistics with clinical abortions where miscarriages. But it's bad. And why? Because there is there are people who are propagating it as a family planning method without understanding that this thing is wounding women. And you know, when you do a business, you really don't care the outcome of the other person. It's a product you're giving, or rather a service you're giving, and the money comes to you and you go and use the money in whatever way you're using. You really don't care what happens on the other side. And that's how the abortion industry has become. They're just offering services to people. I mean, we could go very political with this question. I don't know how political you want us to go, but it can be very political. But the truth is that it has been given to women as a family planning method, but then it's really wounding women. Half of the problem in the families we have right now, and we've seen women who come to us, who have families and all that, it alters the way, and I think the doctor will talk about the way you raise up your children and all that. And if people would understand the graveness and the seriousness of the emotional, psychological impact of abortion, we would step back and say, why is this really the best way to go? So yes, human beings want quick fixes. Human beings want shortcuts in life. That's very unfortunate. but we need to think about the ramifications of our actions.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a big thing, unfortunately, but we are here to tell people what happens to a woman who has an abortion. It's our hope that people will realize and not go that direction.
Akech, how much is an abortion today? Just thinking, I'm thinking aloud. How much are we spending here?
Again, very political, because there is no regulation the government is not regulating this issue, and even and I don't want the government to regulate, because regulation means legalizing it and then now putting a cost to it. But because the government is not saying anything about it, so you'll find people charge whatever cost they want to charge, from even to the 20,000 to the 50,000. And this is what happens from the stories we've had. People coming to us, there are chemists that at the back are usually actually abortion mills.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to call them clinic. Clinic helps people. Abortion mills.
A
so
mill.
a woman goes in and they say they want to test for pregnancy. It's a chemist. So you test positive. And then they say, oh, so they look at you and they see the way you are shocked and anxious and all that. They say, oh, we can help you. They take you behind. Kumbe uko nyuma is actually an abortion mill. And they tell you, just call someone right now. How much can you give? Oh, I can only afford this amount of money. No, that's too little. You know, we have to do this for you. Can you give us 10,000? Call someone right now and tell them you're stranded and you need this amount of money, or call 2 people. And that's how women are having abortions.
Okay.
Because it's quick money, you know, and because there's no regulation, people charge anything. So depending on how good your clinic is or how bad your abortion mill is, so you just charge anything to just get that quick money, and that's really so I can't tell you a cost, because
But
people
is there
charge
a
what they
range?
want.
Is there a range that you can tell me that for 5,000 I'm in very dangerous zone? For 100,000 I'm sleeping in a nice bed.
I
Is
think
there a
what
range?
we've had is between 5,000 to 20,000.
Okay.
Yes, that's generally what we've had.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this abortion, it happens like in an hour, and you just go back home? Are you sick? I think, let me ask the doctor. Do you feel sick? I mean, what have you had? Do you feel unwell, or do you just pick your bag and you're like, whistle away back to your job? I mean, could we do it at lunchtime?
It sounds like, from what I think the experiences Akech you guys have had, you know, somebody can go in the morning and go back home the same day.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And actually for them also to, what other chemists are doing, they're prescribing the abortion pill,
The
which
e-pill
again is
or
also
whatever
not
it is.
regulated.
Yeah.
And that thing is so dangerous, because they will tell you how to use it, and some of them, because you know, even our chemists, it's not even professional selling the drug. Ni mtoto wa mwenye duka. So they just have an idea of how it is used. So they give you the pill, you go home and self-abort. And we've had many people who've gone through excruciating pain when they're self-aborting, and even going to even have to bury their own babies. Because, you know, you have to be... You are already having an abortion. That in itself, if somebody is taking care of the mess, is a bit better. It's not good, but it's a bit better. So you're having the abortion, and then you have to take care of the mess. You're not even being told, now when the baby comes out, this is what you do. You have to find a way of taking care of that mess. I mean, it is emotionally and psychologically traumatizing. I cannot even begin to explain to you. And that's why we need to talk about this issue.
Yeah.
Because it is just putting women in such a very bad situation. And you see, the abortionist, or the one prescribing the pill, doesn't want anything to do with the mess after that. You know.
Doctor, what is the real mess after that? Besides depression, I don't know what is the real mess?
yeah, so the real mess is that, like I said, first of all, you're killing a child.
Yeah.
And so you kill this child, and you have to live with the aftermath of that decision.
Yeah.
A decision that you may take so casually, but then later on in life. So if maybe you're trying to, okay, so like for example, if a mother now has children later on, you find that it shows up in their mothering. One of the ways that it shows up is the mother can be very protective, feeling like, since I did this to that one, I have to make sure I overdo for this one. So you overprotect them, you really regulate everything that they are doing, because you're sometimes fearing that they might be punished or anything could happen to them. the flip side is also the case. For some, since I did this to my child, even this one I have, what right do I have to bond with them? And so you find they become distant parents. They're not able to engage in this bonding aspect with their child. Another way that it shows up is your own femininity. You know, so we are, as women, we are nurturers. That's a God-given kind of instinct. And so you feel like I'm supposed to be a nurturer, to care for other people. And then I take this child, so I've gone against what is a natural instinct. And so because of that, you find that, you know, you feel like I'm not as good as other women. Other women are better than me. And so you find in terms of relating with other females, it becomes a challenge. And Aket used her example of this lady who's a virgin, and she's just thinking, you're better than me. So it sounds like this lady would be a representation of maybe who she would want to be. And so you end up pushing the person away because they remind you.
So you find women who actually will tell you, I don't like other women, I like men. They don't actually associate that with.
They may not connect,
They
make
may
the
not be able
connection.
to connect with the fact that they find perhaps female company very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that's the problem with coping mechanisms, because I think the doctor will explain this, but you're trying to cope with this pain and you don't know how to, and therefore you begin to employ the wrong things to try and treat yourself, you know, and that's why we are offering these healing classes, because we want you to, like she said, it's grief, and everyone has to grieve. The problem is that you're grieving unhealthily. So how can we bring you to begin to grieve this baby healthily, knowing that you've been forgiven, or going through the process until you forgive yourself, you receive forgiveness from God, you forgive everybody associated with the abortion, and then now, even if you have to cry, you cry knowing that I am in a safe space, you know? So I think what we've seen a lot is dealing with this pain in an unhealthy way produces bad coping mechanisms, the sex, the alcohol, the hating people, the anger, the bitterness, the, I don't know, just wild things people do, the excessive, you know, career person, you know, hiding. Because after my first abortion, I got into the college of my dreams. I actually studied media. So I get into college and I'm like, let me just bury my head in my books, because surely which man will even look at me twice? That was a coping mechanism for me, you know? And you're trying to prove yourself good because inside you know you're not good. You're just worthless. You're just a shell. And with the hope that my career or my books will give me some worth, you know? And that's what people are going through every day. And we just need to stop. We just need to stop and sort ourselves out. Because no matter how much you grow in the career, as long as you've not sorted you out, there's a time that will come that you will be so shaken that you will not even wake up to go to work. You know, that's the reality.
Doctor, so what are you guys, what are you ladies offering? You have just put, the problem is big. How can we be helped?
I know Pals and Treasures actually run support groups, and I'll let Akech talk about that. I think the first thing is for people to be aware, if you've had an abortion, your vulnerability to post-abortion distress or syndrome is very high. So beginning to recognize and make connections. So that grieving, that sadness is something that may be connected to this abortion. That, because sometimes people think, I just did it like long time ago when I was so young and now I'm much later in life. It shows up if you've not, it shows up in some way. So how is your abortion showing up? And Akech has described very many different ways that it shows up. It could be showing up in drinking, sexual activity, relationships, even in marriages. So you find a lady who had it before she was married and maybe has never even told the spouse, and that is interfering and is a dynamic within the marriage. Or you find couples who agreed together and then, you know, did this thing, and then now it becomes, so it morphs and shows up in so many ways. So the first thing is recognize how is it showing up for you, and then get some support, get some help. And I think Akech can speak to the groups they have.
About what you're doing with the girls, and then also speak to us about what alternatives are you now able to offer if I come to you and I'm in a crisis.
Okay. I like the way the doctor has said about recognizing. I think for me, my first healing came when I connected the dots. I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. Fine, there's something wrong with me, but now I understand. Because you're just living in this space where you don't know what happened to you. You can't tell, you know? And so, yes, recognizing, understanding that this thing you're going through is actually because of that. And I remember the director of the organization we worked for took us through a class on grief. That was another stage of me recognizing. And she said, you know, you can grieve even over a pen that you've lost. I was like, oh my goodness, that is why, you know? And this is why we share our stories, because that is the only way women have recognized what they're going through, and that's how they come to us. Actually, 99% of the women we've taken through our sessions have actually had us in the media, and that's why they come, because they recognize, you know? And so at Pearls and Treasures, we are a Christian organization, let me say that. And so our healing program is very biblical. It's called Forgiven and Set Free. And because of what abortion does to you, it's just all these bottled up emotions. This particular program helps to begin to split. Okay, I am actually experiencing anger. I'm actually depressed. I'm actually hateful. I'm actually not forgiven. So you begin to see yourself in all this variety of emotions, because when you separate, then you can be able to deal with one at a time, instead of all this whole big thing that you don't understand. And we find that as the weeks go, there's so much relief that even show on the girls' faces. And I just like to talk about, this is something I'd like to talk about. Like a woman can come in the first week, they are unkempt because of the depression. A woman will tell you, I've not gone to the salon for 6 months or 1 year. You know, they just don't care about themselves. By the 5th week, they come through the gate with makeup. You're like, oh my goodness, who are you again? You can actually begin to see the healing, what's the word? Expressed.
Inside out.
The same way the pain is expressed outwardly is the same way the healing is expressed outwardly. Okay. And even by you telling them, wow, this is happening to you, you actually begin to give them the encouragement that what you're doing is right, you know? And so it's such an amazing ministry that I love dearly. But also when a woman comes to us and they're in a crisis pregnancy, like I said, it's one of our most important ministries, because we don't want you to be wounded. So we take you in, we begin to counsel you, to walk with you, because we usually say that a crisis is just a seasonal thing. And the fact that it's an unplanned pregnancy, we like to attach the baby to the crisis. So we help to separate the crisis from the baby. So you look at the baby for who they are and what they're bringing into your lives, and we eliminate the crisis. We try to help you eliminate the crisis, but we also try to help you see the strengths you have. Because in every crisis that is presented to us, there is a strength. We just don't see it because our eyes are blurred by this crisis. You feel like I'm sinking into this deep hole. And so we hold your hand and we say, no, you're not sinking. There is light. There is hope. You have a strength. And actually, many of the women have the solutions within them. They just need somebody to support them to see the solutions. And as per now, I think we've rescued over 50 babies, you know, just by us working alongside this women, actually over 70 to be honest.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay. Daktari, what about the men? I heard the men. The men's stories are, they came, something happened, then they suggested an abortion. Some of them paid, some didn't pay. Some collaborated with doctors. Where are the men in these stories?
Yeah, actually, we've started doing a bit of maybe more sharing on the impact of abortion on men. So men, you're a father.
Yes.
This is your child that was killed. And so the same sense of grief that the woman experiences is also something that is bottled up within this man who knows, I had a child, but this child is no longer there. Men also are supposed to be protectors. And so there's this feeling like I was supposed to protect the most vulnerable human being, my own child, and I didn't step up to that plate. And that haunts a man. So you find that this man struggles sometimes in taking responsibility over decisions. So that sense of passivity. And sometimes it's hard when you think about for the men, some feel like they don't have, because it's not my body, the impact will not be shown on me. So some feel like they don't have a right to speak into the fact that, you know, in terms of helping you make the decision. So some feel like, how can I tell her not to have the abortion? It's not my body, so to speak, you know, and she's the one who's going to go through all that. But even that abdicating your leadership in that situation shows up now later in terms of feeling like, what right do I have to be responsible if I didn't take responsibility for the life of the very child that I'm supposed to protect? And then again, also it shows up in terms of now those external ways of coping. So you find people get into drinking, people get into casual sexual activity. A lot of times the relationship between this man and this woman often breaks up. You find that the research has shown a majority of those relationships don't last because this thing between them, that they are not, you know, there's just the shame, the guilt. No one is trying to really talk about it. It really strains the relationship, and people often go apart. So for the men, there is so much that happens, and I think we need to have more men speaking about that impact, because it's not just the woman who's affected. It's not just the baby that's impacted. It affects men too.
Aket, I'm told we're running out of time.
Okay.
So do you have a parting shot?
I have a parting shot. Actually, two things. Number one, there's nothing like safe abortions. And that's what the world is propagating right now. Because if it was safe, then this woman would not suffer emotionally and psychologically. If it was safe, the baby would not die. If it was safe, the father would not be impacted that much. If it was safe, our families and our societies would not be impacted the way they are being impacted right now. So there's nothing like safe abortion. Number two, I just want to put it out there that 93% of the women we've seen had their abortions in very proper hospitals, very proper, beautiful hospitals in very high-end places. And we've had a few, like 2 or 3, who've had their abortions in what we call the quacks. But when they come together, there's only one thing they say: my pain of abortion. They don't talk about the nice clinics they had abortions in. They don't talk about the quacks they had abortion in. So I want to say that what the world is propagating is not right. Let's just sit down and go back to the drawing board and let not people take away your self-worth. Make money at the expense of who you are and your self-worth, and impact you in that way. And there's no reverse unless you come for healing.
Okay, let me ask you one small question. Doctor, you prepare your parting shot. One last question. If you had had today when you think back, if you had had your first baby, how do you think that would have changed the course of your life?
I think it would have made me a more healthier person, emotionally and psychologically.
And having a lot more responsible.
Exactly. A lot more. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten pregnant again, you know, and I'm not saying people get into a crisis pregnancy the first time don't but I know that I'll be celebrating my babies. It's a joy. A child is an honor badge that is eternal. No one takes it away from you. It's yours, you know. Yeah, so you're co-creator with God. God creates in heaven, you create on earth. You get? Yeah. So I would be a healthier, happier person. Yeah.
Isn't that funny, Dr.
Yeah.
That we are sold the lie that if this thing disappears, we'll be better. But the truth is actually, if she had had her 2 children today, they should have a completely different life and a completely different dynamic. Your parting shot?
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, if you're in that crisis, don't make a permanent solution for a temporary problem. Right? That there is a way for you to resolve this crisis in a way that can grow you and make you better. But I also want to say, if you're in that place of contemplating abortion, please do not go down that road. It's not healthy for you and for the future. But also, if you have had an abortion, it's not the end of the road. There is hope out there. There is healing out there. And I hope that we've seen from Akeche's story, from Noel's story, and from so many other women and even men that it's not the end.
Yeah.
So get the help that you need so that you don't have to keep getting stuck and continuing to have more abortions or continuing to live in a place that's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
So again, get the help that you need.
How do we find you? Where is this Pearls and Treasures?
Okay,
Are
so-
you on Facebook? Where
Oh,
can
we are all over. We're on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter. Our physical office is New Waumini House, Westlands. So New Waumini House is behind the old Waumini House building. But you can get us on 0712309846. I will repeat, 0712309846. That's our number, and somebody will be on the other side to receive you, to hear from you, and we'll be happy to get you into a healing program because we just love you that much.
Yay!
Yeah. For us, we are Optimal Bliss. We are located in Professor Nelson Awori Center. We are a private practice giving counseling to individuals who need support in dealing with every kind of emotional issues.
Okay, Optimal
Bliss.
this Pearls and Treasures.
Yes.
And you're also on the social media
Yes,
manenos,
we
yeah?
are on Optimal Bliss
Okay.
in Facebook as well.
Okay, cool. Asanteni sana, ladies.
Thank you.
May God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Amen.
Keep up and keep speaking. Keep speaking. To be honest, I had looked for somebody to do this abortion story, and then you said you'd been doing it forever. I was embarrassed for not
Sorry.
having ever had it. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank
Yeah. Ladies, there you've had it. It's no longer a secret. Blow the lid. Yeah, seek help. And if you're in a crisis, do not make a permanent solution about a very temporary situation. Have a great week. Baraka.